And then that's when black text then become a burden, because constantly comparing yourself with other people. So I learned to kind of really isolate myself, look myself like as an individual, not compare, and see the beauty in actually trying to help a mom.
Hi, and welcome back to the Sincerely Sindz podcast. I go by the name Cindy Samambondo, also known as Sindz. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast. Today, I am presenting to you my sit down with Shumani Chifango, who is now a derivative structurer at ABSA. He has had an amazing journey, one which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. We talk about black tax because he's known as the black tax god, and we also talk about what motivates him and what has motivated him to become the man that he is, the successful man that he is today. And just to share, when we were having coffee, he also mentioned that he's very careful with the friends that he chooses because he knows that they have a huge influence in your life. So he's very particular with the people that he invites into his life, and I thought that I should just add that because I think it's something we should all think about, especially as we grow. Be cautious of the people that we bring into our lives. Let me not talk too much. Please enjoy the podcast and let me know what you think. And if you want to be on my podcast, please do email me on sincerelysindzpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and of course you can find the podcast on SoundCloud. From me, Sindz, enjoy. Put in their place a lot, social media. So, but anyways, I just want to say thank you for giving me your time.
Yeah.
I know that it's been a bit of since last year, but thank you so much for giving me your time and just for allowing me into your world just for like a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I want to start with this question that I always ask my guests. How do you introduce Shumani to the world?
Oh God, that's a really tough question. I think one thing that you mean to the world.
To the world, when you wake up, or when when you wake up, sometimes you're just like, okay, I'm doing this, or when you step into a room and you have to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Who are you, in a sense?
Who am I? That's a very, very tough question. This is a very tough question. So I'll try to think about maybe the start, like the waking up part.
Okay.
And all of that.
Yeah.
And I think how I can describe myself quite often with one word, I think representing can be like a really big driver of everything that I do.
Yeah.
So an example, when I wake up in the morning, I always feel like I'm doing something that is bigger than me, if that makes sense. And I represent millions of kids who don't have opportunities, and I do not take any day for granted, if that makes sense. So that's why I find it very tough to like really have like this one descriptive word that can describe me.
Yeah.
But one thing maybe that I can use, I think pushing boundaries, it's one of them. I'm always constantly trying to go beyond what I can imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also feel, especially after high school, it's like you have that pressure to make it because you know where you come from.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
How do you affirm yourself? Do you have like any affirmations that you stick to, or like that you say on quite often?
I think listening to music that talks about listening to music is like actually my affirmation quite a lot. I love listening to. So literally before I left in the morning today, I was listening to a song by Janae Aiko, which is called Promises, and it's Janae Aiko literally talking to
her daughter.
Her daughter.
Yes.
But what I imagine the opposite thing. So it's like my mom talking to me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so that is almost like, so I use kind of my feelings and everything through music. I can express myself, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful.
And music can kind of really take me to places that I can ever think. It's my therapy when I need like
Absolutely.
a therapy or
Yeah.
But another thing, I think my journey has been so long in such a way that with experience, then affirmation, you don't really need it from people anymore. Because I grew up in a place where I didn't have people to validate my dreams, if that makes sense. And every dream that I had, people could reject it immediately without even thinking, if that makes sense. And sometimes I don't really blame them because obviously of where I come from, because they've never experienced or seen such an ambition. And as a result of that, I believe so much in my own self-validation. And I kind of learned it at my worst point, the worst point in my life, when I was at UCT. I didn't have a bursary, I didn't have anything, I was failing, and you can hear all these people, he's not smart, he's not all of this. And you learn that, your affirmation can't really come from people, because people are fickle. The next day they think you're not as great as you are. So I kind of call it to just the universe, and takes me exactly where I want to.
I like that.
And my mom's energy, like what I was talking about in the music. So I always try to channel her energy, because she's like an amazing woman who's super strong, who has worked really, really insanely hard.
That's beautiful.
And I think my mom is like the biggest affirmation of everything I do.
That's so beautiful. Wow. Okay, that's beautiful. Do you mind just taking us to your childhood?
Okay.
The moments where you're like, okay, this is who I want to be. With the moment where you're a child, where you're like, okay, this is how I want to be. And then other moments now when you reflect, and you're like, geez, there was a time when I said I wanted to do this or be this, and this is happening.
So I think one privilege that I had from you was, so I grew up with a mother who wanted to go to university and do all these kind of things. And due to the fact that women back in the days, and also money part, that women back in the days were not given that privilege, and academics was seen as a male thing, as a male privilege kind of thing. Even after passing grade 12, she didn't go any further. So from a young age, she really kind of made me to believe beyond what she could see, if that makes sense, because she wanted to be most of the stuff that I've already achieved.
That's beautiful.
And as a result of that, I think that was a very safer environment already. So I didn't really need like quite a lot of money in order for me to have confidence and all of that. And as a result of that, I never had like any negative thought when I was a child. I always thought, I could do anything.
That's
Even
amazing.
when my mom sometimes would be like, you're just in your head quite a lot. I remember, so we stayed like in a 2-room mud house, and I used to sit like outside, I think the street there, and I just observe, like I would see this world that I wanted to live in. And I think I don't even remember what age it was, but I was such a child, and I felt like I could do it. But then it's tough to even imagine that now at the point where I am, because I've kind of really experienced quite a lot of stuff, and I'm super insanely privileged where I am, and my mind can't even conceive. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it can't conceive where I come from. Like I try to, but it's deep. Like I come from like
It happens.
the bottoms of the bottom, and it's everyday kind of thing that I have to remind myself. Sometimes I think of something and I'm like, oh shucks, I wanted to be this.
That's amazing.
I
always believe in childhood dreams. I say it's always good to reflect on your childhood dreams because they remind you of who you really are. Like if you go back to the 5-year-old, if you can remember, you know, and tap into that child and that child's mind and that child's heart, you'll really discover who you're really meant to be.
Very true.
And it's now that I'm like living the life that that little girl wanted to live. You know, I always wanted to be on radio, and like I made that dream come true last year. I was like, wow, I'm trying by all means to make that little girl happy, because that girl knew no, you know, no did not exist. So it's amazing that, you know, you say that. And I mean, the way you speak about your mother is just so heartwarming. You make me want to meet her. She sounds like a really amazing person, and you know, So you were raised by her?
Yeah, I was raised by my mom.
Just your mom?
I mean, my dad was. He was a dad.
Yeah,
a dad in in quotation
I
marks.
can relate.
Yeah,
that's beautiful, and just how much of she never made you feel like. She made you feel like you were a child, because that's what you were. That's what I'm getting. You know, she never made you feel like you're an adult, or you had to understand adult things at a young age, and that's beautiful. That's really great. And I've noticed that you're really big on academic excellence.
Yeah.
Is that something that were you always like a top student? Or is it just now?
I wasn't actually. So when I went to at my high school, which is Mbiri, in Limpopo, a very great high school. I mean, my first position when I was in grade 8 was 261, and that was like 42 average. I had failed almost everything, 4 subjects, and it took me like more than 4 years to get in top 100. My mom used to say all the time, "Oh yeah, no, I'll give you $50." She was lying though. If you enter into top 100, and then afterwards, like I remember just wanting to make a difference in my life, and I studied hard. I used to study. I started sleeping like 4 hours and all of that, and I used to put like a bucket of water with water in my legs just for me not to sleep.
Really?
Yeah, in high school, because I wasn't smart. So I've always known that I wasn't like a smart guy, and I need to work way harder to outperform the smart people quite often.
That's true. Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, I just need to. When you say you're not a smart guy, then do you relate your success to hard work then?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That's interesting. No, I wasn't a smart guy.
So I genuinely think you become smart all the time, and the more work that you put, it's like small change, right? By us just having this conversation, our conversation does have a small impact.
Yeah, totally.
But if I understand myself, right, and understand how slow I can be, then I invest more hours in trying to better myself. That after 5 years' time, the people that are very smart sometimes are very comfortable. So after 5 years' time, you actually outsmart the smart people. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's true.
And varsity as well. I mean, when I went to varsity, I was doing well like a few years. I felt like a lot of courses, like 5 courses when I was like in 3rd year. I lost my bursary, everything was in shambles. But one thing that I realized when I was at varsity was when I got to 4th year I felt like the world was cruel a little bit because of one mistake that I made. I had lost like almost everything.
Yeah.
And no one really cared.
Yeah.
Not that I cared in that way, but no one. And I felt like that, and I hated explaining myself when I have to apply for jobs, explaining why my marks were bad, and not making it for interviews, because that's the first phase of everything. People always check the marks that you actually do get. And as much as I was like, I'm beyond my academics, no one was really giving me a chance, right? My father or my mom cannot go for coffee or for golf with someone that will give me a chance, if that makes sense.
That's true.
And that's when I realized, in a world like this, I have to put in the work. And I have to put in the work in such a way that in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, I become the best I can be. And that's where the academic excellence part came from, because from then I became did well in my academics. I was receiving academic awards, even at Square. And yeah, even recently I taught like at the academic dinner. So,
I saw that.
Yeah, so you can imagine after failing all those years and now you're standing in front of people who actually probably did well better than you did in academics and actually giving those kind of talks. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm like mind blown. Is there anyone else that besides your mother that you tapped into for inspiration? Because
that I tap into.
Yeah, just to look at and be like, okay.
I actually do have a lot of people.
Okay.
So I really love people that do. So I love your explanation at first, right? When you were talking about why you're doing the broadcast and all of that, you don't see all of this, so you want to.
Yeah.
So I love people that do things for a bigger reason. And I've always been inspired by people that do that because I share very similar energy. And sometimes it's really tough to find people that can validate my thoughts, exactly how I think, or where I want to go to, or all those kind of things. And sometimes I have to look outside for those people. And one of the people for me is Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
Who's like an amazing woman doing all she can. And it's crazy when I hear her, I feel like someone understands me. I love, who's this from South Africa, Trevor Noah. He's like one of the greatest people that I actually know. Listening to his interviews is like one of the best thing to do. And I love Will Smith, who is like my greatest inspiration.
He's like our dad.
Yeah.
Like we don't like have him, but he's like our dad.
I literally believe he's like my dad.
Yeah, he's so cool.
I wanna talk. Like I listen to his speech like almost every day in the morning, which is insane. Like he talks about concepts that I feel like I do understand. And one other, I love the Teleperi. I started looking kind of recently, only based on what is it? I was listening to his speeches based on building like the studio for black people and all of that. I think that was really super amazing. I love people like J. Cole. J. Cole and Chance the Rapper are like one of my inspiration. I know I'm talking about rappers. I think J. Cole, I love his song. So his song literally helped me like through the most, called Love Yours. And he talks about the fact that there's no better life than yours. And it helps me just realize, take my decision with no influence. Because I'm not trying to be like anyone. I'm just trying to be like myself.
Yeah.
And just a few people, I forgot the name of that lady who's like she's always challenging Mark Zuckerberg on she's like, I don't know, some political stuff.
Okay. I have no idea.
Those are, I think that's a summary of all the people that are really, really genuine. Last person, Russell Wilson.
Oh.
I love his energy.
Yes.
So I really, really love listening to his pep talks when he's playing football.
That's great. So, very interesting that you did engineering and then you went on to Masters in Commerce. Can you please explain that transition?
When I was growing up, I used to have like an aunt, I call her auntie, but she used to sell like a lot of Bibles and all those kind of things. And I used to go to her all the time wanting to sell all of them, and I didn't want to even get paid. And that's when I realized my passion for finance and commerce. And then one time when I was in grade 12, I was applying for bursaries, wanting to be a CA at first.
Didn't we all?
And then afterwards, I remember I was reading like an ESCOM bursary thing, and it says EG electrical on the courses that you want to study. And I'm like, okay, crying for opportunities. Applied for electrical. I hated physics in high school, hated it with passion. And after that, I got accepted in electrical engineering. I had a bursary with an engineering company. And studying it was very tough because I had to force myself to kind of really like it. And then I got to fourth year. After getting to fourth year, I'm like to my bursary, no, this is actually not happening. I can't do this. I have to I have to drop you guys. So I put myself in a debt of $500,000 to go follow my passion, which I had to kind of really appeal for them not to chase me or all of that. And then the Masters of Commerce part was my way to kind of reunite with my finance passion and what I really wanted to be. And I think that was the best year of my life ever.
That's great.
To study something that I really enjoy. And I've always known that if I do something that I enjoy, then I'll actually do way better. Because in engineering, I was just going to be so depressed.
Miserable.
And I was just going to hate my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of black children are dealing with at the moment. It's like, that's when this thing of white privilege comes in.
Yeah.
Because like you can study whatever you want. You can afford to study art knowing that you've got backup. You know, with most people now, that's why most parents are scared. And you think, no, they're just against art. I don't think that's the case. It's just they think about your well-being and like you spend so much money following your passion and then your passion doesn't pay you because let's be real, at the end of the day you have to eat, you have to live like a normal human being.
I mean, like the career that I was still following, it really still could pay the bills. Yeah, so you kind of really have to.
That's really, and it always gets to me, and it's like, I'm all for arts. Like, I love people that pursue I actually respect people who pursue their passion for the arts. Yeah. You know, but it's always a sad side when they come back and they just like, okay, I need something to fall back on. Yeah. You know, it's like
it's how life is.
I was like, I was rooting for you, but that's just how life is. And just to divert a bit, I just want to hear your thoughts on the education system as it stands. Do you think that it's for the black child? Do you think it's against the success of a black child?
Yeah. I think almost the world that we live in, it's tough for a black child, right?
Yeah, totally.
In every way, starting from education to a lot of stuff. I mean, if you think about education also in general, then you realize that even in sports, for an example, it's only introducing modern C's kind of schools, right?
Totally.
Which a lot of kids who went to some of the schools like mine aren't exposed to. So which actually mean that already before you even get to university, there's a competitive advantage that those kids already have, right?
Sure.
And in the country that we live in, I see education as a privilege. It is a privilege. And the
good education, actually. Education itself is a luxury, and good education is like...
Yes, good education is
like, like you're really living.
And I mean, to even bring some of my experiences, I think I was talking about the year and third year where I was excluded. And I was using walls and notes to just try to save myself from financial exclusions. I was walking on door to door to ask money from people to just pay for my own academics. And not going home for quite some time, being a stats tutor and private tutoring at the same time, working longer than I actually work here at work, right? And it's tough to live in a world sometimes that expect someone that comes from where I come from, like a black child actually, a black child to have to go through that in order for them to just acquire a certificate, if that makes sense. And that's why I struggle with like the whole thing where people can say that, you know, our education system is a mess and all of that, because I'm like, we haven't resolved the inequality already. So if you're trying to introduce a system that is very tough, an educational system that is very tough without resolving that, then that's still not okay, if that makes sense. And that's why I don't take anything for granted, because it is how it is. I mean, you can even look after universities and stuff. You must see how many black kids are still not employed. And so even after getting that education, then what do we do? What's next? Actually,
I think there's like an unparalleled situation going on. I think a lot of the things we're learning now are not relevant to what the job seekers are looking for. And I think it just needs a whole sit down and just a whole change. And people are usually not open to change.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for us to change a lot of things. You know, coding, these are things that should be introduced a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because let's face it.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, a lot of computers are taking our jobs now, so we need to learn how to work with the computer.
Yeah, but then you see, I agree with what you're saying, but then how do you introduce such systems to black kids who don't have privilege of having computers?
That's where we should start.
So that's exactly where we should start.
Yeah,
we need to make education not a privilege, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the inequality in relation to education is just too high. Why are black kids still going to schools with no books?
Yeah.
And why do we have to tell all these stories of, you know,
there's no toilet.
I was reading on a candle and all of that.
That's true.
That's tough.
That's so true.
It is tough, but we live in a hostile systems, right? That don't even kind of give you a chance to express that difficulty. Because the moment you start expressing it, the more you get kicked out of the system. Right? Exactly.
Yes, it's true. And it just makes you think of how lucky you are, you know, but it also gives you a sense of responsibility. Yeah. Like, I must do more, you know, I must pave it forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes maybe complaining all the time can also be a lazy thing, but we should talk about things and complain. But at the same time, what I think we should encourage quite often is be the change that we want to see.
Exactly.
Right? And if I feel like black people aren't represented in the corporate world, let me be a corporate giant and actually represent the black.
Hey!
Because no one is going to change any system that they do not understand. And in order for systems to change, people who understand them actually have to be the ones to actually make those changes. Yeah.
That is so true. Yeah, that's true. Wow. And going into the whole field of employment. So you get your job, right? What was your first job?
Market risk.
Market risk. Oh, is it the same company?
Oh, ABSA.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you get your job, first paycheck comes in, and you're just like, Mommy?
Yeah.
Sit down. I got you now.
Yeah.
How did that feel for you? Like,
you know what I'm laughing at now? It's like I never realized how much I've achieved until someone actually says it and questions me, and I'm like, oh, shit, I've done that. Oh, wow, did I actually manage to do that? I think, you know, I've always wanted to do things for my mom.
Beautiful.
Like, I'm a giver normally. I love giving. I love helping. But I wanted to give a better, like my mom living a better life than me is like, that's okay too. Like I saw my mom earning 800 and trying to take me to school with that 800. But she never made me feel poor at any point in time, right? And I remember when I was at university at one point, she started getting sick because of the water and all of that. And at that time, I was also, you know, my degree was delayed and I pushed by a year my engineering degree. And then I don't like what I'm studying anymore, so it actually meant that she has to wait for longer. And she was hospitalized and all of that and everything.
That's a lot.
And I just wanted to give the privilege to my mom to just sit down and I do the work. Like how she did my whole life, if that makes sense.
Was that your goal from like first year? Like, okay, my mom, I'm going to do this for my mom?
No, from the day I told you, remember when I was starting to talk, the day when I was young and I was standing on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And it's listening to songs like those, like J. Cole song that I was talking about, where it talks, there's no life better than yours. And I realized that, you know, everyone here is trying to chase the same stuff.
Yeah.
But no one can ever take away the fact that I've helped my mom.
Yeah.
I don't know, it beats anything that I can ever think of.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I'm not like everyone. You know, I can't live like how other people are. And I need to, by understanding my own limitations and where I come from,
great boundaries.
I wish I could do more to my mom. I think my mom deserves way better than I'm actually doing for her already.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. You will. Like, and you know, it's quite funny that you take the title Black Tax God with so much pride, because a lot of young black people shy away from that topic, or they get frustrated and they justify it in that because it's like you put in so much work in varsity, and then you're just like, okay, I want to live. And some people come to work in Joburg, and they come from other towns, outside of Joburg, and it's like you have to pay rent, and then and you still have to look after your siblings, so it's a lot. So how do you manage black tax?
Oh, it's actually good. So I believe in expectations and setting expectations and being vocal about where you are.
Okay.
So not lie to people and say I have money when I don't have money.
Absolutely.
So be open to my mom about the problems that I'm experiencing and financial problems that I'm experiencing. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to do that, especially black men.
Yeah.
Right? They feel like they have pride to show weakness.
Sure.
And I think that helps because I'm able to set expectations from the start. And I can't beat out expectations that I cannot afford. And I mean, the reason why I even take the title Black Tax God is because, so it's something like, so I've learned that I do not have the privilege of seeing certain things as bad.
Okay.
Right. So
that's good. Yeah, that is a privilege.
It is a privilege, and I see that privilege. I saw that privilege from just like talking about my mom being a domestic worker, and someone talking about how rich their family is. But me talking about my poor mom is asking for pity and asking for all of this. Then their balling is fine. They're living their life, right? Okay. And it's like people are kind of trying to shy me away from my own realities. And by understanding that there's no life better than mine, I'm able to see beauty in a lot of difficulties that I go through, right? And as a child, if I can exclude myself from Cape Town or the cities and all of that, as a child, my big dream was to help my family. And once I started getting introduced to these complex ideas and everything, and being in a space where at UCT, where a kid is super privileged, insanely privileged, that I feel like I need to compete with them. And then that's when black tax then become a burden, because constantly comparing yourself with other people. So I learned to kind of really isolate myself, look myself like as an individual, not compare, and see the beauty in actually trying to help my mom and do all those kind of things. And that's why I call myself the black
tax.
Because I thought, I live with this reality every day. Maybe it's time to actually
embrace it. Yeah. That's true. And so I've noticed from how you speak and just how I've been stalking you, that you have a spirit for philanthropy. It's just great to see. Especially within young people, I love seeing that. So would you say that it comes from how you grew up, and is it something that you want to pursue in the future as something that you want to be known for?
What is philanthropy?
Philanthropy.
Yeah.
Philanthropy. It's like the spirit of giving, the spirit of, just like you said that you're a giver, but I noticed that you're also just willing to not help just, on an individual basis, but on a societal basis. So do you have any hopes and dreams when it's connected to that?
I do. So I've been helping a few students at varsity, helping them with their allowances sometimes when I can. One thing that I also did here at ABSA was to raise 15,000 for a lady that was going on maternity leave, who was a helper by a different company. So usually if you're from a different company, usually that company has to kind of really help you.
Oh, okay.
But then, I don't know, one time she asked me for food when I was sitting literally just there, and it's like I was knocked that day,
Yeah.
and I raised money the whole division here, and I managed to raise 15,000. But the reason for that is because, to get where I am, I was helped by a lot of people, and that help kind of just put you just a little bit step further, just like privilege does, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that made me realize that I can't just complain about things. I better try to help someone.
Yeah.
And I do have future plans. I want to start like my own scholarship.
Yes.
I
I actually expected that. I was waiting for you to say that.
I want to start my own scholarship. I want to write great books.
Okay. That's good.
I want to give like the best speeches ever I could.
It's good, yeah. You totally should.
I want to give back as much as I can, and it's funny because most of my ambitions are based on giving back than actually creating my own wealth. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I just feel very strongly about. Yeah.
Well, it's. I mean, if it's your passion and it's genuine.
Yeah.
Things I've noticed when you do things with a genuine heart, they flourish, and you never have to think about where's this gonna come from, or how am I gonna survive this. So you'll be fine. And now that we've touched on corporate and how you raised 15,000 for that lady, just how do you see corporate playing a role in some of the societal issues that we're facing? You know how we had the whole femicide march last year, and it's just, people raising awareness on the matter. But what I noticed was that not a lot of companies were saying stuff, there's not a little acknowledgement of what was going on, How do you is there a way that you see corporates just bridging that gap? Because I honestly feel like corporates can change the world if they really wanted to.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really can. Not to give props to my company, but we were there all the time.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. But we were there all the time. Like there were movements. I think I even have a book of gender-based GBV.
Oh yeah.
Yes, about that we had to wear all the time, to wear black all the time to kind of really show support to the movement. But obviously that's really not enough, right?
Yeah.
And so, I do believe that corporate can play a factor because corporate really hold like a lot of money. If that makes sense. We can't just blame the government only if corporate has to be as responsible as the government. But one other thing that I think, the reason why I think corporate is not making a difference as much as it's supposed to is because there are not many people like you and me who challenge that and who want to do that, because corporate is not really a problem. A problem is the people in the corporate. That's true. If we have enough people who are willing to do that, because I used to think of companies and this company is a problem because of this and this, and I realized that it's actually people that make the company. And if we can bring high awareness and talk about these kind of issues in the companies
that's true.
And be as when you a bit public, like you very out there, you're visible.
Visible.
And then people can challenge these kind of things. But that's one thing that I really love about social media, is that it kind of really forces a lot of these corporates to try to make a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they can make it obviously for advertising, but at the same time, I think we hold them accountable, right? Especially in Twitter.
Yeah, I think we're now starting to see that actually, the companies we work for, where we give so much into, can possibly give something back, just to change some of the situations. But I totally agree with what you just said. This has been great. So just to go back to let's wrap it up. What is your hope for the black child?
I can say my hope is to get for something called privilege not to exist anymore in the world, which can be tough because there's always going to be someone that is less privileged compared to you.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
my hope is to get to a point where it's not tough anymore to just be black, right? In every way, not just academically, not just financial wise. I mean, people talk about like a lot of injustices that are happening towards black people, and for us to feel confidence and realize how strong we are. And because I think we actually don't realize how much we've gone through as people and how much we've actually achieved as people.
Yeah.
And like I see it with black moms all the time. The strength that comes out from there, you literally genuinely then realize that this is beyond what we call strength.
Yeah, we have a different kind of skill.
But what I think is, like, it's gonna get better.
Okay.
We have to just continue fighting.
I like that.
And we have to try by all means to go, give back, and make a difference. And give kids a chance to be better than us, if that makes sense. And that's my hope. My hope is like, I can say, in my head I imagine this picture where it's like a black child like at night and there's like a galaxy and stars and all of that, which kind of shows intense, insane possibilities.
I like that.
And yeah, if that can happen, because currently it's not really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Oh, and I'm just curious to And do you think is it a lot of what we're consuming as through the media? I'm diverting, but I'm just so curious to find out how you think about. Because I find that a lot of things that are being put to us, especially black children, are just not challenging us to think differently, to see things differently, to challenge the norms. So do you think that much of the media we're consuming, or just where we've been placed, is affecting the dreams of the black child and how they see themselves?
Definitely. The reason why I think so is because there's a difference between you being at UCT and you being home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when I go back home to Sindz.
It's
the conversations that we're having,
the
stuff that people say, it's
true.
But then you realize that even being aware or being able to think like that can also be a privilege, because those people aren't exposed to spaces that we've been exposed to. And the challenge will be, how do we then make sure that everyone think in a very similar way? Because even thinking in that way is kind of really a privilege if you can think about it, because I'm in a space that allows me to think like that.
Yeah, that is
Whereas at home, I was like an outlier. I did mention that they never believed in any. They just thought, this crazy child, what are you doing?
So for white people, I'm so against that statement. It just drives me crazy. Like, what do you mean? Even now, like when my mom sees like a really ginormous house, like she'll be like, for her to think that black people live in that house is a bit far-fetched. You can't blame them, because it's just how the system wanted them to think. But it's
so a lot of things that we are as black people are injustices that comes from the system. And which is why I say that we're stronger, because even within those injustices, we still find people who are willing to challenge or rise beyond that.
Yeah, and there's people like you.
Oh yeah, thanks.
We're like challenge. I love hearing these kind of stories, because believe me, that's why I'm doing this, because people need to. I'm inspired by people's stories, and I believe there's a lot of us out there who are just inspired by people's stories. And if you can hear, okay, Shumani failed. Okay, that's relatable, You don't always want to hear a perfect story, and when you hear, okay, Shumani failed, okay, great, I'm still on the right track. And you did this, and you decided, okay, no, I don't want to do engineering anymore, so it's okay to change,
Yeah, it is.
It's just stories that say it's okay, it's like breathe, it's fine.
I know, that's why because there are a lot of untold black stories out there.
Yeah.
And
And so thank you for telling your story.
Yeah.
And yes, your hopes will come true for the black child, and I love that you're optimistic about the future of the black child, even with everything going on, because it's hard to stay optimistic, and especially all the things that were happening last year. It's so hard to remain optimistic. And if you had to write a letter, ask this to all my guests, if you had to write a letter to the university boy, that old Shumani university boy, what are you going to say to him? Just a short letter.
Oh, I'm trying to. I know exactly the point that I'm referring to. Be proud of who you are, and to not be scared to dream as further as you can. You do not require validations. You already work super hard, very strong, and you're gonna change the world. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Anything you'd like to add that we didn't like?
Oh yeah, no.
Talk about?
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. I'm just insanely privileged to have so much opportunities in my life, and like my life has really changed. Like insane. Like remembering just from that time when I was asking. You know, even when I was asking for cash that time, I thought it was gonna get better, but I didn't think it was gonna get this better.
Oh, that's great.
And my career has boomed insane, if that makes sense. And in like Feb, I start like a new career.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yes, and I just got like my dreamiest job ever.
That's
I can never
amazing.
think of anything beyond that. For me, that was like the end goal. That was something that I wanted to achieve in 10 years. And
that's amazing.
I'm joining front office at ABSA.
Well done.
I'll be working for the ABSA London team. I'll be traveling between here.
Are you going to London? Oh my! I'm
Yeah,
going to write your list.
Like
London's like my dream job place. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love London.
And I mean, when I was even at UCT, my dream was always to work like South Africa, then London.
Yeah,
then
really.
Work really hard and
That's
be the
amazing.
best banker and all of that. And and now I'll be doing like.
You
my
had a
dream job.
plan and you stuck to it.
Like it's insane how quickly it went.
It's happening, hey.
And I think one thing that I learned recently is to not doubt what I speak, and to be as strong as I can be. Like, to not fear. I think we all are ambitious. We all know what we want, but we're scared to talk about it.
Yeah.
And we're scared to be judged to talk about it. And if I believe that I'm going to be a CEO of the bank, say it loudly.
Yeah.
Have
so
the
true.
audacity to say it.
I always say words are either your medicine or your poison, or like that push you need. The words you say. I've been so careful with the words I've been saying to myself since last year. Because last year I got into like this whole, now I'm taking charge of how I think, what I consume. Now I'm taking charge of me because I need to be a better person from what I've always been. And, just the words I speak to myself are very different. Simple things like someone saying, I'm so stupid, like when they do something wrong. Those are things we should just really shy away from. And especially now in this society, we're consuming so much media and all the stuff that you read, that questions your existence, that makes you question a lot of things. You need to know where you stand, what you believe in.
You need to. And it's very tough to do so.
Yeah, it is.
It's super tough.
That's why it doesn't have a lot of successful people.
In a world that's constantly trying to define you in certain parameters.
Yeah,
and they're trying to make you exactly what they think you should be. It can be very tough to just be your own self.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes guts to do so.
True.
And that's like most of my defining moments are just being brave.
Yeah.
Like being brave to just be you.
Your story does say that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so inspired. Thank you so much for your time.
And thanks for giving me an opportunity.
Listen, I just read your thread and I was like, okay, I need to make this happen. It's like literally same time I was like to my friends, okay, I think I found someone else because wow, your story needs to be told and it needs to be heard.
Yeah.
You know? Thank you so much for your time. All the best with everything, really. Continue to dream big so you can inspire us.
You must continue to do big.
I will.
I can't wait for this to also go bigger.
Same. Yeah, I really prayed that because I really wanted to make a change. Even if it's just 10, 20 people, I would have done my best.
Yeah, it's one change. One change changes another person.
Yes.
Yeah.